Hello, you fine ass people. How are you? Welcome to Games Up Podcast. My name's Cameron and he is Lewis.
Hello,
Hello,
I'm
how are
Lewis.
you?
Doing well. Doing well.
I'm doing
Excited.
more fast and loose on the intros these days.
Yeah, just flim flam.
Who needs organisation?
Yeah.
This week, your Indie Game of the Week is not brought to you by Mr. Crawford, but me instead, and it is Super Hot. So, Lewis, what I need you to do is, as I describe why Super Hot is a great game, just say Super Hot over the top of everything, if that would be
That sounds
okay.
like a terrible idea.
Okay.
Not doing it. No.
So Super Hot is brought to you by Super Hot Team. That's the development team, and Super Hot is the name of the game. Basically, it's this awesome idea for a shooter that's kind of half shooter, almost half platformer, but that would make more sense as you played the game. Bear with me a little bit. Super Hot is basically you get dropped into a bunch of scenarios where time only moves where you do. As you move, you can see enemies moving towards you, shooting guns, but when you stop, you see their bullets frozen in basically stopped time. It moves a tiny little bit. And you have to strategize how to move, how to attack, what to pick up, what to drop, how to play the game. And that sounds super easy, but the more stuff they throw in, the harder it becomes because it's like juggling a lot of plates and you've really got to keep them spinning in order to do it perfectly. Then at the end of each level you get a replay of the badass action that you pulled off, and it is quite addictive to just sit there and watch how cool you look when it's sped up and in real time, and definitely not what it looks like you achieved. So Super Hot is an awesome game. There was a demo made available online years and years ago. You can still play that demo on Miniclip, I think, but it's nothing in comparison to the real game now. If you have PC or PS4, there's a VR version, and I've seen people play that. It's awesome. It's even cooler than the base game, but the base game is great as well. And there's also, and I'm not going to go into it, A, because I'm not that deep into it, so I don't want to ruin or undermine it in any way, and B, because I think it's actually the kind of the cherry on the top of this cake, but there's a really neat little story that I'm watching unvolved? Unravel in Super Hot, about sort of the internet and games and conspiracy theories. So I'm going to say no more than that, but it's a very unique idea on top of already unique mechanics. So if you have games with gold, you can get this game free now until the end of the month. That's how I picked it up, and now that I have, I would definitely recommend you go do it. So if you're on Xbox and you pay for gold, you don't even have to buy this game. It's just there for you. If you're on any other platform, it's not hugely expensive and definitely worth the recommendation. So that is this week's Indie Game of the Week. It's Super Hot, and I would hugely recommend you pick it up. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a good recommendation. I've played through it myself a while ago, and it's the most innovative shooter I've ever played. Uh,
And you know what? Like, for any other game, that would be a massively bold claim, but I fully get what you mean. Absolutely true with Super Hot.
More
So
to it than you
that's...
think.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you were saying?
So there's a lot to that, but yeah,
Um, oh, really? Is there more than I know?
possibly. You'll see. I think you'll
Good.
see.
I'm very excited. Very excited to get through that game. But that is the end of your Indie Game of the Week. Now it's time to move on to some super hot news. Oh, dear. It's been quite a week of news. For some reason, Thursdays are like the happening week, the happening day in the games industry.
Yeah, like so the last week we had obviously the whole Nintendo Direct and a few other big news pieces. This week's a bit more muted, but we still got quite a few news pieces on Thursday specifically.
Yeah, and then like you get the kind of drizzle of news the day after that wraps it all up. So yeah, the last couple of days have been really good for games news. And it starts with Fortnite Battle Royale, the mobile app, which has done major numbers in barely any time at all. Lewis, you know a little bit more than me on this, so tell us about this situation.
Yeah, so the Fortnite app was released. It was an invite only, but you could invite your friends as well. It's actually not been publicly available. And in under 12 hours, it became one of the most popular apps, not just games, but apps in 13 different countries. I haven't actually checked how it's going. There isn't actually an update on how it's doing now, but I'm sure it's pulling in massive numbers. Fortnite in general has become, it's probably fair to say that it's becoming or has become the next Minecraft.
Yeah.
Apparently all the kids are playing it. Apparently all the kids are playing it.
It's the next Minecraft like in where Minecraft was at first. I think Minecraft had a huge amount of longevity, and I don't know whether Fortnite will have
Yeah,
that.
that's fair. But I mean, there was a point kind of, when we were into Minecraft, and then like, actually, I think you got into it a bit later, but when I was into Minecraft, there was like a period before the kids kind of played Minecraft, and then it became this huge thing that all of the kids liked and collected toys of and all that kind of stuff. And I think Fortnite is something that we could see go that way.
Mm. I I don't know that it will work that way. I think it will be very popular. Like I think it's probably going to be closer to like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, where that was huge and people played it for a year, and then there was the next Call of Duty. I think there'll probably be another multiplayer shooter or another battle royale thing. But it is impressive how genuinely massive it is. And for it to be the biggest app in 13 countries shows that it just gets bigger apparently.
Yeah.
Next up, we had 2 reveals this week for Tomb Raider. Firstly, we were teased with a shadow of the Tomb Raider reveal for Thursday, and then they leaked the reveal the day before, and then they leaked the website, and then through the website code, they leaked that it was coming out in September, and then the trailer leaked, and then on Thursday, they revealed Shadow of the Tomb Raider to a bunch of people who already knew that Shadow of the Tomb Raider was coming out. So we finally know about this game. What do you think?
Yeah, so they put up a website that was just an image that was going to be like replaced with the actual news later on, but it was very easy just to look at the source code, and in the source code it was literally like full reveals on April 27th, something like that, and then release day is September 14th, and it gave away like almost everything, which is an interesting way of doing things.
It's really weird that we've known about this game for 2.5 years, but this is the first time we were supposed to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We've known about this game nearly since Rise of the Tomb Raider came out. It wasn't long after that we saw the guy who lost a PowerPoint on a train that like leaked the game's existence, and this was quite a while ago. And this was the first point we were supposed to find out about this game. They have absolutely bungled the game so far in terms of the way they've communicated about it and the marketing of it. I hope. And I have no reason to believe, because it's Crystal Dynamics and Square, that this game won't play well and it won't be handled well in that sense. But man, whoever is on their marketing team is dropping the ball left, right, and centre all over websites.
Yeah. So it's set in Mexico. At least some of it is. The trailer gives like quite a doomsday vibe. But if you ask me, I think we're going to be doing something similar to. I don't know, calendar of what was it called? The Doomsday Calendar, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know, just a Vegas because it's in that region, and the trailer has like what's it, a total eclipse, which is very much like a doomsday like metaphor, similarly.
And as you say, the Mexico setting, so that could lead to all sorts of like Mayan and Aztec connections. So, did you like the trailer?
Yeah, but it's only like, you said it yourself to me that it's fairly generic, and there wasn't too much in there that kind of gave anything away. It was just kind of action shots of like lava running through a jungle. Mm-hmm. And we got the viewpoint of the pyramids in Mexico, but other than that, there wasn't really much.
Yeah, it's obvious why they've done this with the Tomb Raider film coming out this week. They want to jump on that hype bandwagon. I would have preferred to see an actual story trailer. I think Rise, when they first announced that, had an actual story trailer, and that was super exciting because it looked like a real step up from the last game. This looks like it could very much be more of the same, which is kind of a shame. Also, interestingly, this is on the official description in the RSS code. This is described as the ultimate ending to Lara's Origins trilogy, which suggests that like this is, or at least the ending of Lara's origin, which suggests that like this is the third in a trilogy of games, which is interesting for 2 reasons. One, because Shadow of the Tomb Raider coming out this year, so is Tomb Raider 4 like a game set in lots of years' time when she's been Tomb Raiding for a while? Do we, how are we going to continue this story? Also interesting because Crystal Dynamics have a lot of work put into the Marvel's Avengers game. So is this their way of dropping Tomb Raider onto somebody else so they can focus on that afterwards?
Yeah, there's lots to talk about with it, and kind of wondering about when we're likely to see Tomb Raider 4, if we're likely to see Tomb Raider 4.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, interesting, definitely interesting. And also, like, you're right though. Like, one of the problems of setting games in the modern day is that eventually you end up at the point where you're like, the next Tomb Raider, if Lara's been Tomb Raiding for 10 years, is going to be set in like 2030. We've all got hover cars. I don't know.
Let me just get out of my flying car to raid this tomb.
Yeah,
I can't do an impression of Lara Croft. I think it's
I don't
Camilla
know what that
Luddington
was.
that voices her. So yeah, we'll have more to talk about with this on April 27th when the game is officially revealed, if it's not leaked beforehand. They also announced the Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 remaster. I don't know that there's like a huge amount to talk about here. It's what it is. It's a remaster of the old games. Apparently, you say it's got analog controls.
Yeah, so the original Tomb Raider was. Wait, analog controls. Yeah, the original Tomb Raider, you had to control through the D-pad.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It was like incredibly difficult to play. Like if you picked it up now, in fact, I will tell you, I've picked up one of the more recent ones that was PS2, but they never actually they didn't change the control scheme from back then. And so you're kind of in like almost tank controls, like turning Lara is really weird, and I could not get past the tutorial because of the pain of trying to control this character that's just not like nicely bound and nicely controlled.
So it's up-resed and the controls have been updated, it seems. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a remaster as you expect it.
Yeah, I mean it'll still look like a game that was made back then. They're not. It's not like being, the original Tomb Raider was not a graphical masterpiece, but although it might have been in the time, in fairness to it. But I'm actually quite excited for it because I mean I grew up playing Tomb Raider games, very much so, and like I would like the opportunity to play through the original series again, but with nicer controls because it's just impossible to go back to it now. Have you ever played like one of the Medal of Honor or something, like one of those kind of first-person shooters back from the PS2 era, or like GoldenEye?
Yeah.
They're almost impossible to go back to. Like you just can't like deal with how difficult they are.
Like they were almost impossible to play at the time. I can't imagine what they must have been like going back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, next up, in a move that surprised absolutely nobody, Geralt from The Witcher is coming to Soul Calibur 6. Also, apparently, he takes up the majority of the box art.
Yeah, so the box art's been released, and it's half, but I mean, like, it very much feels like they're kind of cashing in on the image of Geralt because they know that it's been so popular. That's not surprising, but it's like the joke at the moment is that they've taken like the Witcher 3 box and just put like Soul Calibur on the top.
Yeah, it is very much a copy-paste job, isn't it?
Yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, this is cool. I don't really know much about the Soul Calibur series. I think there's going to be something very interesting to see about what licensed characters they do get, because obviously the Soul Calibur series before this, one of the biggest things they were known for was having Star Wars characters, and you've got to imagine that Disney are absolutely not even humouring the idea of that. So Geralt is a big thing for inside like the gaming sphere, but I wonder if they'll have anyone else that can compete with that high-end license that they previously had.
Yeah, I don't know if Soul Calibur is known for having too many guest characters, in fairness to it. But I think like people are kind of excited to play Geralt in this setting. It's definitely like a good character to choose for marketing push.
I mean, like, I only say that because like I personally know Soul Calibur for Yoda and Vader. Like,
exactly.
On the box art.
No, I know, but I think they tend to only have like a single guest character, I think, or like one or two. Because I think it was weird in the 7th gen because it was, I think Soul Calibur 4 had Vader if you were on PS3 and Yoda if you were on Xbox.
Yeah.
Which was a weird way of doing things.
And then Soul Calibur 5 was Ezio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember. But yeah, I'm quite excited for that. I don't know if I'll play actually, but
I'm quite excited for that. I mean, I probably won't ever touch it, but I'm quite excited for that
I
game.
realised I was lying. Like, just like, yeah. No, I mean,
To put this into
I'm sure I'll see it,
perspective,
but like, I'm not a big fighting game, and I think for me to enjoy fighting games, it has to be like Injustice,
okay, yeah, I see.
where there's like a really big story or like a really like interactive thing going on.
Bit
I
of
might
additional
pick up something like that.
information. Bit of additional information for you. Cool fact here: if you were on PS3, you got Vader. If you were on Xbox 360, you got Yoda. Guess who you got if you were on Wii?
Oh, go on.
No, guess.
Oh, I'm going to be so bad. Jar Jar.
If only. No, close enough though. Sonic.
Sonic. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
What a
then,
kick
still
in the
okay.
teeth that is for Nintendo people. The other two
Wait,
consoles
Sonic?
in the
How does that
generation.
work?
What's that?
I'm just interested in how that actually works.
Like the other two consoles in the generation get some of the most reviled characters in history, and Nintendo's like, yeah, just push Sonic on it again. All right, the next piece of news that seemed fairly interesting this week is that Days Gone is no longer a 2018 game. It has been confirmed to be pushed back a year to 2019. You have put in the show notes, Mr. Crawford, that you think this makes sense. I would like to disagree with you respectfully.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about it a little. I talked about it with some others, but I think it will have to be pushed back quite a bit because I don't think they want to release it next to Last of Us. In theory, when that's going to be releasing, I'm not too overly bothered about pushbacks, to be honest, as long as we still get it and it's not pushed back to eternity. But originally, I thought it made sense because they've got a busy year, but I think their year isn't as busy as maybe I thought.
I think this has happened for a different reason. So lay our cards on the table. I don't think The Last of Us is anywhere near coming out. I think that's a 2020 game, if that early. I think this has been delayed because it's having a bit of an identity struggle.
I can see that. Maybe they're not too sure about the game.
People have. There's slowly a rising tide against like zombie shooters. Not that they they sell well. And people and they're liked, but when somebody announces another zombie shooter, there's a bit of a crowd groan moment. And I think that Days Gone would have been a really cool game 2 or 3 years ago when the zombie shooter thing was like big, and so zombie shooter with motorbikes would have been huge. But I think with the tone of Last of Us, and then more traditional zombie shooting mechanics, and that it just seems like there's a lot of things going into it, but I couldn't really tell you what it is. And I wonder if Sony are kind of thinking that they want to reposition it a little bit, especially with The Last of Us on its heels wherever it comes out.
Yeah. I think that they don't want to make the mistake of pushing out something that's not going to do well enough. And I think it's quite clear if you look at the kind of the way people are viewing that game is that many people are like unsure about it, and there isn't much confidence in Days Gone.
Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they are trying to maybe even push it into a place where they think it's going to be more impactful. It's not too surprising because Sony never released any games in late anyway. Like it was meant to be released in late 2018, which is not their usual way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, nonetheless, though, what it shows is Sony either caring about the identity of a game or listening to the consumers about their confidence in the game, and that just goes to show what Sony are doing best this time around. So good for them.
Yeah. So just I looked at Soul Calibur 4 on Wii.
Oh right.
And Sonic's just a character, like a guy, but he's dressed in blue.
What? That's no.
Like it's not
He's
in
just,
any way.
he's a dude in a Sonic suit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's amazing!
Like it's the least effort.
Oh my god. I
think
would actually pay more money for somebody dressing up as a lookalike of characters. That would be awesome.
But they literally, it's not Sonic. It's guy in a
Oh
blue
my
suit.
god, no! It is just a dude with blue hair.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, this is brilliant.
yeah. So not really anything.
But what's
Not really
really
any like
funny about
special.
that is that Yoda was the real Yoda. Like that, it wasn't a person dressed up as Yoda.
I mean, I'd feel cheated. I mean, the box art literally has like Sonic on it.
Imagine! Oh
Like
my goodness!
the box art literally has like Sonic at the top, as well as Sonic like on the back. Like so, it looks like it's got Sonic in it, and then literally in game, it's just a guy.
I love the
Uh,
idea that they were like, we don't know if we'll get the license for Sonic. Let's just make a blue dude. And then out of the blue, Sega's like, yeah, you can have him. We don't care. And they're like, oh shit, we've got to name this dude Sonic now.
there's definitely an argument to be made about false advertising. Uh,
Oh, this is brilliant. Thank you. That's made my week. All right, back onto the serious stuff. Sonic, speaking of our favourite blue man, the Sonic team are supposedly teasing a new Sonic racing game. There's a tweet that's up at the minute, which is a shadowy logo, and the only really visible part of it is a big red R. Now, Sonic this week announced a fancy version of Sonic Mania with some new characters and on some new platforms. Or the new version on platforms anyway. But it seems like there might be another tease to come from Sonic, which is Sonic Racing. I would say this makes a lot of sense.
yeah, Sonic Racing is a series that's done actually surprisingly well, considering it seems to be the only part of Sonic branding that can actually do well at the moment. At least like 3D, and it is something that's actually been well received. It shows that maybe there's room on the market for some other karting games and other kind of cute racing games, let's say.
Yeah. And
Especially away from the Wii, away from the Nintendo Switch and away from Nintendo.
well, that's what I was gonna jump on with. Is there's a huge amount of demand at the minute for a remake of Crash Team Racing, and Sonic has struggled a lot, as you say, with its level of success, especially in the 3D space. But Sonic Racing is basically a kart racing with Sonic pasted over the top. So this would be a good way for our favourite blue man to find success in the 3D space without necessarily having to go through the sort of hell and high water development cycle that Sonic 3D games seem to go through.
Yeah.
Speaking of Soul Calibur and its Star Wars characters, Star Wars Battlefront 2 has finally detailed the progression system, the controversial system that will replace the previous controversial system, which was said to be too loot boxy. The gist of it is the star cards, the upgrades, and the add-ons that you got for characters, i.e. you can now use this grenade, you can now use this cooldown, so on and so forth, are unlocked only via gameplay, so you can't buy them, and they are not in loot boxes. And cosmetics will start being added in April and will be available via both premium and in-game currency. They're bound to be pricey, though. I don't know that this is enough to save Star Wars Battlefront 2. I think EA have shot themselves in the foot quite literally here.
Yeah, you have to wonder whether it wasn't just worth cutting losses on it. I don't know, I don't know how well it's doing.
I mean, like, it's sold fantastically, but it drastically undersold in comparison to the last one.
Yeah, it's whether there's still enough playing now that would be using the purchases and trying to purchase things. I'm not too sure how popular it's doing and whether there's enough people interested in purchasing content now, especially because the game's been out for a long time. Though it's fair to say that, like, at the very least, we half suspected they were going to add in all the terrible progression that we didn't like and that gamers kind of united against. But it seems that actually, no, they are not going to go putting, character abilities behind purchases. So that's good at least.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely seems like a choice in the right direction. I'd like to know a couple more specifics about it, but but that would be asking a lot, especially of a business at this point. I'd like to know what cosmetics means, because I feel like in something like Overwatch, you can say cosmetics, and that gives you a lot of free reign to design stuff and come up with new characters. Whereas cosmetics in Star Wars is really like quite heavily locked behind the movies and the universe and the stories they tell. So like, I don't know, like I could understand if you can unlock different color schemes or this, that, the other, but it's still going to be fairly limited about what they can put and not put in the game. So I'd like to know some more specifics about that.
I'd like them to do what lots of MOBAs do, like Smite and Heroes of the Storm do, where they just have like outfits that just completely break canon. So like, Smite has one where you can play Ra, but you can play like American Eagle. Just, like instead of Ra, he carries like a big, like a firework rocket and that kind of like silly stuff. They should just have like, I don't know, Pink Vader with a giant dildo.
Yes.
I don't know. I just put, I'd like them to just go silly.
No, I actually agree with you. I think this would be. I mean, like Star Wars. Battlefront games have always been a bit shaky about like what does this actually mean for the story and stuff for Star Wars and the ongoing world. So yeah, I agree with you. I'd like give me rainbow-colored Darth Vader and give me like Rey, but she's dressed up like Qui-Gon Jinn from the first one. I'd love that kind of stuff. Genuinely, like
she dressed as what's it, Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest shames about this is that Battlefront actually plays fantastically. The gameplay of it, on a pure minute to minute in the actual game basis, is really good and a real step up from the last one. And it's a massive shame that EA have, and we said this at the time, it's a massive shame that EA's business has shot the game in the foot here. But I do hope it's something they learn from in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it can only be a good thing for the industry. You do have to wonder whether some of the game developers have noticed and made changes accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably an argument to talk about with, I think Ubisoft's maybe noticed this a bit more.
Yeah. I think there's probably an argument to be made about Microsoft.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's have a final couple pieces of news. The first is that the Myst developers. Now, Myst is a real deep cut for a lot of people, so bear with us. The Myst developers have announced that alongside their newest game, Firmament, I've no idea what that is, they're planning to re-release the entire Myst series. If you don't know what Myst is kind of like The Witness, but more of a traditional sort of straight linear puzzle game. And there was a big series of them, and they were always sort of based on an island. So there was always the Myst Island in different games.
Yeah.
Do we think this is a re-release that would do well?
I think there's quite a lot of people that would be interested in picking up a Myst re-release, considering that it's a very old game. Like the first PC game was in 1993, I believe.
Well,
so it's a very old series, and a lot of people have played them. I do think they'll do fairly well. I think like they're only a small indie studio, and like they're not. This isn't one of those games that needs to shift like millions of units before it's profitable. I think like I'll buy it. At the end of the day, like I think I really enjoyed those games, and it'll be nice to see kind of a newer version of them. And like Cyan Inc., the people that made this, made a game called Abduction. Which came out recently, which is a really good game, and I think everyone should kind of play it. It's an indie. Ooh. Next week, let's see. Something will happen. It might be indie game of the week. Preview.
So please be excited for that.
Yeah, no, I'll pick up Myst, and I think quite a lot of people will, just because it's very much like a game that's had a big legacy on the point and click genre and the puzzle genre. I think although we talked about Witness, I think that is a game that, while its core is very different from Myst, its actual kind of feeling for design is very similar. In the sense of kind of being on an island and then kind of putting things in that are visual storytelling, as opposed to, say, directly telling the person what's there. Myst is unique for the way it just drops you in it and lets you explore.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that many people will pick this up, but I do think that people will respect its legacy. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's a really big thing for it to get a remaster, but it probably won't be bought by all the people that... Yeah. But it won't be bought by all the people who respect that legacy, if that makes sense. Like, I guess I'm trying to think of an equivalent. Like, if GoldenEye got a remaster... No, that doesn't work. But I think... I think it's one of those things where a lot of people will go, wow, they're remaking Myst, and then not pick it up, if that makes sense. It'll be a big thing for the industry, but I think it will have a hardcore group that buy it and probably not too much wider than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say, considering that this news has very much gone underneath the radar anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's like there's a small community that are very interested in probably picking it up, but in terms of the wider audience, then probably less so. They are less so. But like, as someone who played through the games myself, I'd be happy to play through them again. A bit like the Tomb Raider one.
Hmm. Speaking of remasters, we got it teased this week that Spyro was to be announced, and then it did not happen. A big leaker, in inverted commas, on Reddit said, "Hello, everybody! Spyro: The Treasure Trilogy is being announced today," and then it was not announced. This broke my heart a little bit.
Not sure if I'd call him a big leaker. He was 2 for 2, but he was the person who leaked the.
The last thing he leaked was the next Call of Duty game. I think that's pretty big.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, no, true, definitely true. And I think like I was, looking at the clock at 8.
Yeah,
when
same.
the trailer was supposed to drop and nothing happened. Yeah.
I think if anything should have told us that this was going to be defunct. I think it's the name. I don't think it will be called the Treasure Trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just like that would be like calling Crash like the Mask Trilogy or the Wumpa Fruit Trilogy or whatever. It feels a bit.
I don't know. I mean, Trilogy does play a big part in Spyro. I guess it's also could be called something about like the little dragons, the fairies.
Yeah, the Dragonfly.
Dragonflies, yeah,
I could see it being called like Spyro Trilogy of the Dragon or something like that.
Mm.
But I don't know. Treasure Trilogy just seems a bit on the nose.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And one last thing for you in terms of announcements to keep your eye out for. We are supposedly expecting, actually, the day after you listen to this on the 20th, or if you've listened to it after Monday, I guess, any day then, a new Oddworld game to be announced on March the 20th, so the Tuesday of the week that this podcast comes out. That's cool.
Yeah, and you have to wonder whether this something else that's happening on the 20th is the Nintendo Nindies.
Oh, yes, it is.
Nintendo indie games that are coming to the Switch, and I have to wonder whether that's not coincidence that these two things are happening on the same day. Yeah, and I'm quite excited. I'm quite excited to see what they're up to because it's been a while since we've had a new Oddworld game. And there's the mysterious Soulstorm that was announced and then never saw the light of day. So I'd like to see what they're up to.
And your final piece of news before the topic of the week is that Microsoft have announced this year that they are doing E3 slightly differently, as in they won't have cars on stage, hopefully.
No, it's happening. There's definitely going to be a car on stage. It's going to be talked about for 10 minutes.
The car will talk about itself. It'll be Bumblebee from the new Transform. Anyway, the Microsoft E3 conference will this year be held at the Microsoft Theatre, where they're also going to be holding their entire E3 presence. They're going to have a small booth on the floor of the E3 conference centre for Mixer, where they're going to be streaming games and so on and so forth. I imagine this will be like the Twitch booth at MCM Comic Con or the Twitch booth at EGX, where they play a bunch of stuff, they promote a bunch of stuff, but it's not really like their whole presence there. And then their presence of like games that they're bringing, demo stations, interviews, so on and so forth, will all be at the Microsoft Theatre. So very much like EA Play, although this is in conjunction with E3 rather than EA Play, who are like, piss off, we're doing our own thing.
Yeah.
EA Play's like Homer Simpson being sucked into the sandpit throwing fingers, and Microsoft's like, yeah, we're just moving across the street. Yeah,
and it's good because it means they've got more space. Especially to bring all of the unique games that are coming to Xbox. Anyway. You have to wonder, like, it's one of those things, like, I'm sure there'll be something good that's third party on the floor that's able to be played. We just don't know what that thing is yet.
I think there's probably... I hope there's probably going to be a couple of things that are going to surprise us. Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see Crackdown and Sea of Thieves there. Like, they go quite hard on what we've got this year rather than this season. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see those games there. But, yeah, if they have got something, it's going to be a big surprise at this point. So, hopefully we get a big surprise.
Yeah, hopefully we're surprised.
In a piece of totally not news that's quite funny, did you see the Overwatch League controversy this week?
Go on, tell me.
So there was a couple of teams who were playing, and one of them, the underdog team, Florida, beat the more likely to win Gladiators. And when they walked off stage and back into the rooms afterwards, the coach from the Gladiators shoulder barged a couple of the Florida players. And people were like, oh, dude, you can't do that. So they've put out like a huge statement from the coach that's like, I'm sorry, I'll never shoulder barge anyone again. So, and people are like ripping it to piss. There are people who have like set up a victims of shoulder barging charity so that he can donate money to it. It's really good. It's very funny. Not that we're taking the piss out of anyone who's ever been shoulder barged, of course. Speaking of shoulder barging, this week we want to talk to you about who we want to see in Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers, of course, got its big reveal last week. It was a big talking point for the show. And now the dust has settled and we've started to wonder about what this will mean for the game on Switch. Who will we see in the roster? Who will we be taking control of when we're knocking people off of stages, be it with our hands, our swords, or our shoulders? So, Lewis, I put it to you that we live in one of the richest times for gaming, and that means some of the richest variety in Smash. Who do you want to see in Smash Brothers?
So I think the one that would be big and the one that I could actually see happening would be Crash. I could definitely see Crash coming to Super Smash. And I think one of the things that I love about Super Smash Brothers, and especially playing through the old ones, is they're always really faithful to the characters. We talked about it last time, actually, now that I think about it, but they're always really faithful to characters of putting like a nice special level for that character, as well as their music and their, abilities are all really kind of like memorable, and they're all like kind of things that you would kind of go, oh yeah, that's definitely a Crash move, or that's, in the other games that's definitely like what Snake would do with this like rocket launcher, or so I think it's always great when they bring in these interesting characters, and I could see Crash being one of them. Which would be awesome, with spinning moves and annoying the hell out of everyone. But I think that's someone we'll definitely see. There's a few that I would also like to see, but let's get back to you.
I mean, I agree with you. I'd love to see Smash. I'd love to see Crash, even. I think he could bring something genuinely diverse to the series. I think that it would be lovely to see, because people have wanted Crash Bandicoot and Smash for a long, long time. It's just always been limited by licenses and platforms and stuff. And now that doesn't seem to be a problem as much, so it would be awesome to see it. I'd like to see... God, there's loads that I'd like to see. But I'd like to see Snake. I'd like to see Solid Snake in the game and done well. And actually, I'd also maybe like to see Raiden as well. It'd be cool to have that two types of Metal Gear variety in there.
Yeah, they had Snake before in the Wii U Smash, and so it's definitely something that could be done again. I can't remember whether they normally bring characters forwards, but I think so far they have. So yeah, that would be very cool to bring it in. And I think I played through the original Super Smash Brothers. No, not the original. I played through the one that was on GameCube. And the characters in that were characters I couldn't really overly appreciate, the extra characters they brought in, because it was things like characters from Fire Emblem, and some of the other less, Western games that Nintendo made, whereas the Wii U one has loads of interesting characters in it that are from things that I really appreciate, like Bayonetta and like Snake. So it could be one of the games that actually tempts me to like pick it up would be Smash, especially if it's got characters that I can appreciate as being from like this generation of games. And with that in mind, I'd like to mention a character that's actually really old, but something that I could see happening would be Rayman.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Because I think it's kind of since the last Smash game that they've really actually managed to get Rayman as being almost a Nintendo thing, with the Rabbids and with it's very much kind of become something that's kind of on Nintendo, and I could see it happening.
Yeah.
I think it's something that would also be really quite cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You're right, it was around the time of the last Smash that like Rayman had Origins and then Rayman Legacy, and those games have done amazing work to reinvent what Rayman is and how it fits into the modern space. And I think that Rayman, that kind of new, slightly artsy version of Rayman, would make loads of sense in Smash Brothers. That would be great. There's a couple of characters that I'd like to see. If this is the Wii U version of the game, then they're already in there. I don't need to worry about it. I'm kind of inclined to say it's not. We'll talk more about that closer to E3. But if it's not the Wii U version of the game, there's a couple of characters I'd like bringing over. And that is firstly King Day-to-Day, because that penguin is dope, and I love that penguin. Rob the Robot, because for various stupid, jokey reasons, I have a close attachment with Rob the Robot. And though I've got no use for an amiibo of Rob the Robot, I really want an amiibo of Rob the Robot. But those are the kind of stuff I can see happening. There's a couple of ones I'd like that are totally unrealistic, and I'll start with them. The first one that I'd like from something that's totally unrealistic is I'd love to see an Overwatch character in there. I'd love to see, like, Soldier 76 or Genji or Diva or somebody who's really well known for being, like, one of the figureheads of Overwatch. Overwatch probably won't see its time on the Switch. I think it would be a miracle if it did. It would be a miracle for everyone else. It would be a nightmare for me. I'd do nothing but Overwatch. But I don't think it will ever get there because of like how tightly Blizzard control it and how it plays and so on and so forth. But I think it would be a nice nod to the Switch if you could get Soldier and Smash Brothers or something like that. Unlikely, but it would be lovely.
Yeah. I'd like to see whoever they're bringing over from Splatoon. Because I think although we got characters in that trailer, I think they're the more generic ones, and there's kind of big characters that are in that the community are more interested in bringing onto the Switch, bringing onto that game. And then, I don't know, something weird, like from Doom or something. Doom
That's
guy.
a great idea.
Yeah. Because I think like it'd be really good if they capitalized on kind of, I think one of the things that Super Smash does really well as like a franchise is you can release it as like here's what's good about the Nintendo Switch. You kind of put everything into it in a way that says like, here's the things that the Nintendo Switch has. So, that's very much what the previous games did with putting kind of the unique characters that they had, or little games that they've managed to get. So it'd be cool if we could get something from these games that they've ported over, like a character from Doom or like an enemy from Doom. I think Skyrim's a little bit unrealistic, but something like Doom could be done. Something like Wolfenstein. I don't know.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Make like a cartoony version, but yeah.
I definitely agree with you. I think Smash is a great kind of self-managing advert in a way for everything that's on the Switch, and so I think in connection with that, I think you're pretty highly likely to see a Rabid in Smash Brothers, in the next Smash Brothers. I think Kingdom Battle was a big thing for the Switch and a pretty big thing for Ubisoft as well. I'd love to see an Assassin's Creed character in there. I'd love to see like Ezio or something like that. Because again, I don't think you'll ever see, or at least I don't think you'll see one of the premier Assassin's titles on there. You might see like a remaster or something, but I don't think you'll see Origins on the Switch by any means. So that's my like realistic choice this time around. My totally shot in the dark, unrealistic choice is somebody from Disney or Pixar. I'm thinking specifically somebody from Toy Story would be awesome. That's been a big reveal for Square and Kingdom Hearts, and again, I don't think Kingdom Hearts 3 is likely to come to the Switch. At this point, it'd be a miracle if it comes to the consoles anyway. So, not because it's not, just because of the whole announcement stuff they've gone through. Anyway, I think, again, Square are working really quite closely with Nintendo and the Switch with like their smaller stuff, with their RPGs, with the JRPGs, Octopath Traveler and stuff. And so I think as like a courtesy nod to them, if in a totally unrealistic way, it'd be awesome to get like Woody or Buzz Lightyear in. That would be amazing.
Yeah, totally. And that would be, maybe if they could get a few characters in, or like, I think it's definitely something that would be a really cool idea. There's just so many. There's so many characters. That's the thing. There's so many characters that could be in. Like, we could have someone from Dark Souls. Like there's many things.
Oh my god, oh shit! So with the amiibo, Solaire's actually maybe likely.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, yeah, no, exactly. Solaire's actually fairly likely in some sense because there is an amiibo of him that in actual Dark Souls doesn't do much.
Oh right, that's interesting.
But I believe the way that these amiibos usually work is that you can actually use them on multiple games. So
yeah, you take stuff from one to the next as well sometimes.
Yeah, so it's entirely possible that something like Solaire could actually be in it. Yeah. Do you have more, or do you want me to list off the ones that I've got?
I've got one or two more. Yeah.
Okay. So you go.
Oh, Matt, Solaire is that's such a dope idea. I'm gonna go with a likely and then an unlikely one to finish this off. On the likely side, I think you'll probably see somebody from Arms. I think you're almost certainly likely. I can't remember. I think it's Ribbon. It's Ribbon Boy or Ribbon Girl. I can't remember specifically. But I think Nintendo's made a big push for Arms, especially like trying to set up an esports league for it and stuff. And I think that kind of fight. Smash Brothers is known for having a kind of an eclectic fighting style with lots of different people coming together, and I think throwing Arms into that mix would make a lot of sense. So I think that would be really cool for a lot of people. Sorry. And then, totally unlikely, I would quite like to see somebody else from Ubisoft. So my jump to is if we can't get Snake, maybe we get Sam Fisher. There was a tease this week. We didn't report on it because it was just like an Amazon listing and they don't mean a lot usually. But Splinter Cell, a new Splinter Cell game, was listed on Amazon by Ubisoft. That could mean a lot of things. But if that is something coming out this year and Smash Brothers is coming out this year, I'd love to see Sam Fisher on Smash.
Yeah. That would be a good idea. But yeah.
No idea how it would work, but it'd be cool as fuck.
I think, yeah. I think what would be really good is if they could get like some of the indie characters, considering they're making indies such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think like one of the things that's really pushed the Nintendo Switch this generation. One of the things that's pushed the Nintendo Switch is just how it can now be your portable indie game machine. And so like, I'd love to see anything like Hollow Knight, Shovel Knight, any one of the big indies that they had. It'd be nice if there was at least like a nod to some of those.
Mm-hmm.
I think Undertale could have characters in it, and that's one of the ones that's highly rumored to actually be. That's one of the ones that is actually highly rumored to be in there.
Yeah,
is characters from Undertale. That's probably it. Captain Toad from Geralt. There's the joke because Geralt's in the game. Like, they were like, now he's in Soul Calibur. He's almost destined to be in every game.
And then on my side, I've just got two more. One likely, one unlikely, one super unlikely. I'd like to see Mega Man be back in it. Mega Man was in the Wii U one, and I think Mega Man is having. They've like got the new game they're working on. They seem to actually be putting some sort of time and effort into reinventing Mega Man a bit, and so it'd be nice to see that character on the Switch because a lot more people will pick up this game on Switch than they did on Wii U. So it'd be nice to see him get a bit more kind of market share. And then to close us out, the super unlikely one is I'd like the man dressed as Sonic from Soul Calibur 4 to be a playable character in Smash Brothers.
Very good.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, was this week's episode of Games Up Podcast. Thank you very much. Lewis, what will you be playing this week?
So I'm playing through the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC for the most part, and my next indie game probably, and like 20 other things, but God of War 3.
Nice. You're getting ready for God of War 4, of course.
420. When it releases, 420, don't blame me.
Viking Blaze it.
Yeah.
This week I will be finishing Super Hot because I'm absolutely loving it. And I'm going to try and get round to Batman Arkham at some point, though it's been finding the time to actually sit down and give that Telltale game the time it deserves has been a bit difficult. So definitely Super Hot. Hopefully Batman, but we'll see next week. Thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Crawford.
It's been good.
And thank you for joining us as well. If you enjoyed the show, you can always like it and subscribe to it. We are on YouTube and iTunes, one of which you're listening to right now. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us on every one of those by just searching Games Upcast on their search bars, or sometimes on YouTube. We come on Google. We come up for that a bit as well. And if you subscribe to the show, you'll never miss an episode. We post at 6:30 Monday and much earlier that day on iTunes. I'm going back on the Bottle Rocket Gaming podcast at some point. They've invited me back on, so that'll be fun. I've got a podcast coming out this week with a band called Hey Charlie for work. If you know me on Facebook and stuff, I'll be posting it on there. And yeah, that's a lot of plugs. So we'll end it there. Thanks very much. See you next week. And until then, the game is in fact up.